So the trade deadline is a couple days past this now. You guys already saw me grading every single trade from the deadline, and thank you so much for the support in that video. I really appreciate it. And today we're probably going to be doing one of our final videos talking about the trade deadline specifically in itself. I'm going to be giving you guys my 2023 winners and losers from this year's deadline. So I have 5 winners and 5 losers. These could either be players that were traded, teams that didn't make a move or made moves, or maybe players that just benefited from a new player coming to their team, or if they don't benefit from a new player going to their team, or maybe somebody that was on their team that left their team. So yeah, it's kind of all over the place. We're going to be going through them. I'm going to give you guys an explanation why I think they are the winner and they are the loser. In tomorrow's video, you can be on the lookout for me ranking every NBA team in a tier list post-deadline. I'm super excited to do that. You'll get that on Sunday. And if there's a winner or loser that you think happened throughout this deadline, please let me know down below and why you think that. So my first winner is kind of 3-1. It's Chris Paul, the Phoenix Suns, and Kevin Durant. Chris Paul, in one of his final years in the NBA, wasn't looking very good for the Suns. I mean, his play has definitely diminished. It's dropped off. Father Time is catching up to him. And it's looking like the Suns really weren't going to do something in the Western Conference. Booker has missed some time this season, and so is CP3. But it's looking like Denver and Memphis and even Dallas or the Clippers would beat them in the playoffs, and Chris Paul's probably not going to get near a ring again, but you go out, you get one of the best players of all time, one of the best players in the NBA. You're getting Devin Booker back healthy. You didn't have to give up DeAndre Ayton. The Suns are now probably the Western Conference favorite at the moment if they are fully healthy in the playoffs, and if they can add somebody throughout the buyout market. Chris Paul is definitely a winner in my opinion from the deadline. The Suns also, as a team, are a big winner. You went from a team, like I just mentioned, that you had 4 or so teams that are most likely better than you when you are fully healthy into the playoffs. You had a disappointing loss in the conference finals last year. Now you add Kevin Durant to a team with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton. You also got TJ Warren in that trade, and now you're pretty much one of the odds-on favorite to win it all, or at least win your conference. And for Kevin Durant, you got out of Brooklyn, you go team up with Chris Paul, a great veteran. You go team up with one of the best young players in the NBA, the best shooting guard, or up there at least, in Devin Booker over in Phoenix. You got what you wanted, so you're a winner from this deadline. Next up, we have Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. They are both winners. Kyrie got what he wanted. He got out of Brooklyn. He gets to go to a team that is going to be competitive in the Western Conference. He's going to be the second best player on that team. He's going to be able to take the second most shots. We'll see how him and Luka kind of pair up throughout these next couple of weeks, but like KD, Kyrie got what he wanted. We'll see if Dallas is the team that's going to extend him in the offseason. As for Luka Doncic, you know, it wasn't looking like a great season for the Dallas Mavericks. Like when he went down, or when he goes down with the injury, you're like, all right, well, the Mavericks might not even be a top 6 seed in the West, and they're going to be a playing tournament team. You got Christian Wood, you got Tim Hardaway Jr., you had Dinwiddie and Finney Smith, who you eventually gave up for Kyrie Irving. But you go out, you get Kyrie Irving, so now you have a great number 2 there in Dallas. If Kyrie is on the floor, he's the best player that Luka Doncic has played with in his career. They can maybe stagger those minutes where there's a lot of Kyrie minutes when Luka's not in. I mean, say it's like 8 or 9 minutes that Luka doesn't play. Kyrie's just running the second unit on that show, and then they're both there in crunch time. When Luka's maybe not on his game in the fourth quarter, you had one of the best fourth quarter players in the NBA in Kyrie Irving. So I'm excited to see how the Dallas Mavericks pan out for the rest of the season, how they are going to finish up in the regular season, how teams are going to attack them and look at them defensively, because their defense definitely got worse at the deadline. But you have 2 of the best kind of ball handlers and offensive skill players in the league in Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. So I think for them individually, Luka and Kyrie are big winners from this deadline. Next up, we have the LA Lakers. Yeah, they made incredible moves and didn't have to give up all that much throughout the deadline. They started off getting Rui Hachimura a few weeks ago for Kendrick Nunn and a couple second-round picks. And we saw eventually how little second-round picks mean to some teams at this past deadline. So you add a solid young scorer in Hachimura. You could look to extend him in the offseason. That was a great pickup for them. And then they go out and get in a 3-team trade, they acquire D'Angelo Russell, who's an expiring deal. They get Jared Vanderbilt. They get Malik Beasley. 3 players for the cost of 1 first-round pick, 1 2027 top 4 protected first-round pick that now make you a deep team. The Lakers had a thin roster going into the year. You're like, all right, maybe the 8th, the 9th, the 10th players. Do I really want them on the court? Even the 7th man at some times. Now it's like guys like Dennis Schroeder aren't going to be getting as many minutes before. And Dennis Schroeder is still a good player because you're adding 4 new rotational pieces, including Hashimura, over the past couple of weeks. You also added Mo Bamba as well for Patrick Beverley, so he's going to give you more big man depth because you shipped out Thomas Bryant. We'll see if they're in the buyout market, and it's looking like Terrence Ross is going to be going to Dallas, but we'll see if they maybe are like a Will Barton team or somebody else in that sense. But yeah, the Lakers, absolutely huge trade deadline winners for their acquisitions. Like I said, becoming like from not a deep team at all to a pretty deep team in the Western Conference. I think they'll be in the play-in tournament 100%, probably closer to 7 and 8. We'll see how they finish up if LeBron isn't too injured and how AD can stay healthy throughout the rest of the season. But the pure deadline itself, looking just at that, Lakers, they're probably my biggest winner team-wise. Next up, we have the other LA team, the LA Clippers. I think the LA Clippers made some phenomenal moves at this deadline, giving up 2 second-round picks for Bones Highland. My Knicks didn't even need Bones Highland. I'm like, why did we do that? Bones Highland, good young point guard, good young scoring point guard who fits perfectly to come off the bench. He has team control for 2 more seasons. This was a no-brainer pickup for the LA Clippers. He's already better than Reggie Jackson and John Wall, in my opinion. Maybe not like some of those guys on the depth, but like John Wall and Reggie Jackson aren't good on the defensive end. Neither is Bones Highland, but I'm taking Bones Highland's offense over both those guys right now. They didn't trade Terrence Mann at this deadline. They ended up doing Luke Kennard for Eric Gordon. They got a couple seconds back in that trade, but I do believe that their 2028 is a pick swap now with Houston. So that could come back to bite them then, but who cares? Kawhi and Paul George are getting up there in age. They're not getting any healthier. You're trying to win now. You add Bones Highland. You add Eric Gordon. You also added Mason Plumlee for Reggie Jackson, which I loved because you only had to give up a 2028 second. You needed more big man depth. They're a deep team too, the Clippers, because you're adding those guys with Norman Powell, with Marcus Morris, Ivica Zubac, Robert Covington, Nick Batum, and everybody else I mentioned. The Clippers are definitely one of the better teams in the Western Conference. And if Kawhi and Paul George are healthy on their game in the playoffs, they are definitely one of the favorites to win it all, or at least to come out of the West. Them in Phoenix, like I mentioned before. And my last winner, it's a weird one. It's 2 teams, and it's not for the moves they made. It's for teams around them that didn't really make too many moves. So it's the Milwaukee Bucks and the Boston Celtics. The Bucks, they went out, they got Jay Crowder. I like that move for them. 5 seconds, not the end of the world. Celtics didn't do anything too crazy, but they added Mike Muscala. Sure, like cool. Some big man depth there. But it's because teams around them didn't make that many moves. Chicago didn't do anything. Toronto added Pirtle, whatever. I don't think that they're going to be competing against Boston or Milwaukee. Cleveland didn't make any moves. Brooklyn got worse. Philly didn't really make any notable moves. They basically swapped out Thibault for Jalen McDaniels. I think it's still Milwaukee and Boston, and I think they have to be pretty ecstatic that the teams around them didn't get too much better. Like, you probably had Brooklyn and Philly and possibly Cleveland as the people that could beat them in the playoffs. Brooklyn got worse. They're definitely not going to be in that conversation now. Cleveland didn't really get that much better. They didn't really make any moves, and they still have that kind of questionable spot at that small forward position. We'll see if Kevin Love gets bought out. That would make them maybe possibly worse, even though Love isn't playing that much for them. But yeah, Cleveland didn't get better. I like Jalen McDaniels for Philly, but I don't think he's going to put them over the edge. So I think Milwaukee and Boston are winners in their own right because no other team's going to challenge them in the East, and I think it's pretty much either Boston or Milwaukee to come out of them and really no other team. All right, so let's get into the loser section. This is what everybody wants to hear. The first one are the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler isn't getting any younger. Kyle Lowry isn't getting any younger or healthier. Even if you were going to trade Kyle Lowry, like you didn't make any moves to possibly go out and win the Eastern Conference. I do think if Miami maybe added somebody, they would be able to contend with Boston or Milwaukee. If they went out and they upgraded at point guard from maybe Kyle Lowry to Fred VanVleet, or maybe they ended up doing some type of Chris Paul trade before KD went down, or they ended up getting Kyrie Irving, that would have been huge for them too. I'm sure like Brooklyn would have been interested in maybe Jovic, a late first round pick. I don't know. They could have been interested in that. But you didn't do anything. You didn't add a power forward. Maybe try to go get Bojan Bogdanovic to put next to Bam and Jimmy Butler. Miami didn't get better. Some of the players aren't getting any older. Yes, you do have Hero and Bam, who are still years before their prime. I would have just liked to maybe make a win now move, and Miami didn't. Next up, we have the Chicago Bulls. I don't really know what's going on in Chicago. They're apparently in the Russell Westbrook conversation to try to sign him if he gets bought out from Utah. They didn't trade any of their guys that are on expiring contracts. They didn't move Vucevic. There was some Levine talks. That didn't happen. DeMar DeRozan didn't get traded. If they were getting offered for like 2 first-round picks for Caruso, well, they didn't move Caruso. They didn't move Kobe White. They didn't move Andre Drummond or Goran Dragic, some of their veterans. They didn't move anybody. I guess they're kind of content where they are. They're the 19th in the Eastern Conference, 26-29 record. They're better than Washington, in my opinion. We'll see if they're better than Toronto down the stretch to at least make the play-in tournament, which, they could definitely beat the Knicks or the Hawks in the play-in tournament 100%, and that's what they are going for. It's looking like Lonzo's not going to be back this year. I would have just liked some direction for Chicago, maybe open up some more playing time, even more for like Dale and Terry, I would assume move, just maybe some of their young players to see where you're going to be going forward, but they don't have their first round pick this year most likely because they're not going to be a bottom 4 team. So maybe that was their thing. They just didn't want to bottom out. My loser number 3 is a player. It's not his fault. It's Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard's having a very, I think, quiet 30-point per game season. He's like still showing himself as one of the better players and point guards in the NBA, but I just think like this, like the lack of like sense of direction around him in Portland makes him a loser. Jeremy Grant turned down an extension. He didn't get moved, which is fine. I hope they bring him back because I think Grant's a really good player for them. They traded away Josh Hart, who I guess in their mind didn't think they were going to be able to extend. They had Cam Reddish. They ended up trading for Matisse Thybulle. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. We'll see if they will pay him. They didn't upgrade at the center spot, something they kind of needed to do. And still right now, we don't know what's going on with Gary Payton, if they're getting those second round picks for him or if he's coming back, because apparently they made him play through an injury, which is not great in its own right. But yeah, I don't think like Portland, I think now coming back on it, not the biggest losers at the deadline in themselves. And I didn't want to put them as a loser here because this opens up more time or playing time for Shaedon Sharpe. They're going to play Cam Reddish, which is nice. They got potentially a pick in the 20s or the late teens for Josh Hart, which I think is good value, and Cam Reddish, like I said. So yeah, it's really Dame, just kind of the lack of like a direction for Portland right now. Poor Dame. Loser number 4, the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry's going to be out for a little bit. They didn't make a big move, getting like an OG Anunoby or somebody like that. They ended up trading James Wiseman. Finally, they were like, yep, he's not going to be good here. They move him to Detroit. I originally thought they got back Sadiq Bey, so I was like, good job there. But they ended up getting 5 second-round picks for Wiseman, which I'm also like, all right, that's fine. I mean, yeah, you would have rather had like drafted LaMelo Ball looking back, or like somebody even like Patrick Williams or Onyeka Okongwu, but you took James Wiseman. He didn't work out. You traded him for multiple seconds. Sunk cost fallacy. Whatever. But then they ended up moving those seconds for Gary Payton, who might not even pass his physical at this moment. We still don't know. So that comes out now. You kind of know the answer to that. But even adding Gary Payton, you could have just signed him in the offseason and maybe just kept those second round picks. I just think they're a loser. I wish they made a bigger move. I know like they didn't probably want to move Wiggins or Poole. Draymond is going to be a free agent at the end of this year. Clay's been playing better as of late. I just thought if like you're like Steph's getting up there in age, like this is still a really good team. The West is still wide open. I would have liked a more win now move. And my last loser is not a player. It's not a team. It's an owner. It's Joe Tsai of the Brooklyn Nets. He is probably the biggest loser from this deadline. He had to trade his 2-star players that he made, or he signed to max contracts a couple off seasons ago. He had to trade Kyrie Irving to Dallas, Kevin Durant to Phoenix. I think Brooklyn did fine in both those trades returns. I also think they did good in the Jay Crowder return as well. They definitely aren't going to be competing for a championship this year, even though they are 11 games over 500. But yeah, Joe Tsai, like all the drama that's going around with Brooklyn, then they ended up having to trade their 2-star players. They never really had a shot. They had like one good year to win it all, and that was in 2021. KD shoe size, we all know how that goes. So yeah, Joe Tsai is my biggest loser from the 2023 deadline. So yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know any other winners or losers that I didn't mention that you think should have been down below. Also, if you disagree with any of these, I'd love to hear your opinion also in the comments section. Make sure you're subscribed to my newsletter, justballin.net. That link is in the description, as well as following me on Twitter. Link in the description as well, where I just tweet all my thoughts around the NBA. Trade deadline was fun, man. I'm kind of glad it's over. It was stressful, but it was super fun. Thank you to everybody that also came out to the live stream. That was a blast. I love you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.